Elden Ring is easily a top 5 all-time game for your boy. I'll also be completely honest with you, this was actually my very first Souls game I ever played, but something about it just immediately captivated me, and I've been a fan of the genre ever since. I mean, I would marry this game, give it a little kiss right there on the mouth if I could. I mean, I know I don't necessarily have a review for the game up on my channel, but today I am excited to bring you all a review of Elden Ring's first ever DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. No way that is a spider. Oh my gosh, get me out, 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 get me out. Right off the bat, Elden Ring is a Game of the Year winner with over 25 million copies sold worldwide. So whether you're a fan or not, this was a highly anticipated project and garnered a lot of attention when it was first announced back in February of last year. The DLC finally released on June 20th of this year, which means it took From Software roughly a year and a half to bring this game to fruition. If you don't count them possibly working on it quite a bit before the initial announcement, but who knows. Also, before we dive into the story elements here, I just wanted to mention that this was available on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation for $40, and the install size was around 16 gigabytes. Including the base game, you're looking at around 80 gigabytes. The journey into the DLC can happen at any point in the base game, but you have to have killed Mohg and Radahn first. These are the only requirements. You start the story at Mohg's palace, where upon touching the hand of Miquella, you're transported to a brand new area in the Lands Between called the Shadowlands. This is described as a place where all death congregates, and that can definitely be seen in most of the level design, with catacomb dungeons and countless graves scattered across the map. I'm not going to get too deep into the story here in case anyone's worried about spoilers, but our main goal here is to find Miquella, so that's what you set out to do. The story in these games are never fully elaborated on. It's up to the player to unravel the mystery of the adventure. Throughout your journey, there's countless NPC characters and new items that describe the lore of the Shadowlands, and I cannot express the amount of diligent work that goes into crafting a narrative like this. I mean, it's truly a work of art. It's almost like a detective game inside the base game, because it really takes some work to unravel things for yourself, if that's something you're into. A cave, and then another town, and then if we cross-reference that to our, okay, we see, actually that kind of makes sense. Okay, we got town, bridge, bigger town, then maybe this is the cave. Or there's like a cave behind us. Maybe this, yeah, maybe this is the cave. For starters, every written or spoken word is in an old cryptic language that doesn't give you a straight answer at all times. Also, no one item or NPC character is going to have the full story to anything. So you really have to go out, talk with everyone, and explore everything for the dots to really start connecting and things to start making sense. For the most part, I am a big fan of this system they have for delivering a narrative. And from what I can gather so far from the DLC story, I thought it was a pretty dope premise that built off of the base game in a really nice way. The overall gameplay experience is the exact same thing we're used to from the base game, just with some new weapons and items to try out. This is only a DLC, so I obviously wasn't expecting them to reinvent the wheel much, but the things they did add in to change up the gameplay are actually pretty cool. For starters, they've given out a lot more buff items to use during fights, whether that's the Blessing America flasks or golden vows, and they've added a plethora of new items and armor pieces with some insane new abilities that can freshen up any build that you maybe started to get tired of. For my playthrough personally, I didn't try many of these new weapons out. I would just get it, see the ability, say, oh, that's cool, and then put it back. I had a dual katana build that I used for 95% of the DLC up until the last fight, and I was honestly really enjoying that. Not to say the new weapons aren't worth trying or anything, but I just wanted to let you know what I was rocking with for my playthrough. Typically, I like to try out new weapons in new runs, so I'll be checking out more of those in my next playthrough. Out of everything, I think the coolest addition has to be the Kung Fu hand and leg wraps. They're almost like an entirely new class by themselves, so I'll probably be giving those a try first. If there's a different weapon you really like or are excited to try from the DLC, definitely comment down below and let me know so I can try that out for myself too. Besides all the weapons and items, they also added a new permanent buff feature in the form of Erdtree fragments. These fragments can be turned in at a grace site for boosts in overall attack and defensive power, but the buff only works in the Shadowlands, so it's not a difference you'll notice in any base game content. Moving on to the bosses, this DLC certainly has no shortage of boss fights. In total, there's around 33 red bar boss battles that can be found in the Shadowlands, and a plethora of NPC fights as well. For starters, this DLC has a ton of mini boss fights in the form of their NPC mock PvP fights. These characters don't have red bars across the screen, but they're still a lot harder than most normal enemies. I typically don't mind these fights, but I personally felt like this DLC had quite a bit of them to the point where it started to get a bit annoying. I'm mainly not a fan of how they get to heal mid-fight, but that's honestly because I'm just bad and always get too carried away trying to finish them in the first phase. But also at a certain point, it damn near feels forceful. I mean, if I wanted to play PvP, I'd go do that. What's up with all these NPCs?
I'm tired of
Fighting NPC.
Grandpa.
That's too damn bad! You keep digging!
Switching to the actual real big red bar boss fights, these were actually pretty cool. There's a few returning bosses from the base game, but I'd say about 90% of them are all new fights. There's a total of 10 new remembrance bosses that each have their own little special weapons or armor attached to it, and just like the base game, you have to exchange the remembrance for said special item. In terms of difficulty, Elden Ring was already pretty top tier, but they somehow found a way to kick things up a notch for this DLC. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty specifics in case anyone hasn't played these bosses for themselves yet. Most of them are pretty par for the course of Elden Ring, but out of all the boss fights, I'd have to say only like 5 or so were really a step above the rest. There's 5 fights in here that are like, oh wow, From Software really put their whole ass in this one. I mean, it was rough for your boy. I actually have a video posted ranking the boss fights easiest to hardest. If anyone's interested in checking that out after the review, I'll leave a link to it in the description. In the video, I say I get all of the boss fights, but I actually missed one of the dancing lions and the little demi-human swordsmans, so if you feel inclined to just leave a dislike, no worries, it really be like that sometimes. I mean, I have failed. Moving on to the visuals, I mean, this game is easily one of the most visually stunning gaming experiences I have ever had the privilege of playing. Oh my goodness. This place is huge. The game looks great. The Shadowlands specifically is divided into 5 different overall regions, and each of them are beautifully crafted with a distinct environment and personality. There's a ginormous mountain in the bottom right that's home to all the dragons in the region. There's a dark and gloomy madness forest that looks straight out of a horror film. A coastal beachfront with vibrant colors. More huge castles with big grand rooms for battles or platforming. And that's not even everything. Each region is massive and feels like its own DLC in of itself. This took a year and a half, and the work that went into everything definitely shows. I mean, anywhere you go around the map is filled to the brim with characters and objects that bring everything to life. The world feels used and lived in, and all of its elements come together to really aid in the story they're trying to tell here. If this is a place where death congregates, it really feels like that. Even in places where it seems a bit more quiet or calm than most, there's still this overarching eeriness that clouds everything here. It's also worth mentioning that you are small in this game. The map literally makes you feel like an ant trying to get back to its hill on the other side of a public park. I mean, everything is huge. There's also no such thing as out of bounds in this game. If you look off into the distance and see something insanely far away, that isn't just there for background looks. You can actually make your way over there, and that truly amazes me every time. Oh my goodness, we're gonna be going down there and stuff. This is ginormous. Fellas, do you see what I am seeing with my eyes? Moving on to the audio, starting with the voice acting, they hired on people to do the voices for most of the NPCs, and I thought they all did fantastic. The base game also had voice actors, so we really shouldn't expect anything less, since that's the standard they set, but it's still something I bring up for other games, and I feel like it's always worth mentioning. They're definitely getting brownie points for that because it always helps with a more compelling narrative. I mean, did you hear my man Egon? The pain in that voice? Oh yeah, give that man an Oscar. Moving on to sound effects, there's not much different going on here from the base game, but they're still good, so yeah. Wait, what was that? You want me to tell you my favorite sound effect? Oh, okay, yeah. For me, I'd probably say the different weapons. You know, I like how distinct all the weapon sounds are. Whether you're swinging or making contact with something, you know, each different weapon has its own sound. It's different, unique. Okay, your turn. Next, moving on to the music, I mean, it's as brilliant as ever, that's for sure. The music in these From Software games hold a special place in my heart, along with the Doom Eternal OST. It almost hypnotizes you at times. I mean, I've never felt so completely locked in with the game ever. The music is the final piece of the puzzle that just completely immerses you into the world. All of the boss fights have straight up masterpiece symphonies playing in the background that perfectly complement the nature of the fight. and make you straight up feel one with the game. I have absolutely nothing but good things to say about the music for this DLC. It was certainly something I was looking forward to, and they did not disappoint your boy in the slightest. You might just start using this soundtrack as workout music or something. I mean, I honestly don't know anything that can get me this ready to just run through a brick wall. Switching over to bugs and issues, there's not a whole lot to write home about on this front. Everything worked out pretty smooth, at least for me. I will say I experienced one crash in the middle of the final boss fight, which was rather annoying, but other than that, it ran really smooth for your boy. Other than the crash, I didn't really experience any issues worth noting for the video, so we're probably just gonna wrap this section up early. In conclusion, Your Honor, Shadow of the Erdtree banged. This was an insanely fun DLC and a great addition to an already phenomenal game. As I already mentioned in the beginning, Elden Ring is a Game of the Year winner, so From Software had some pretty high expectations to meet, and they completely killed it. If I had to wrap this all up into a rating today, 1 to 10, I think I'm gonna hit this with a resounding 10. They didn't change anything or add anything that's not true to the game. This is really just extra great content. I really can't think of anything that doesn't sit right with me besides maybe all the NPC fights, but I'm not gonna dock points just for that. It still doesn't take away from the experience. This also damn near feels like Elden Ring 2. I mean, there is so much content in here to play and explore, it's insane. At this point, I just can't wait to get back in and start another playthrough. Well, that's gonna about do it here for the review today, folks. Sorry this is so late. I've honestly been so busy since this DLC came out. I wanted to have this video done when I finished my boss tier list, but I've still got to go to work. I've been packing my apartment, trying to work on other videos at the same time. My brother came to town. He was staying at my apartment while I was packing things. There's just a lot going on, and there's not enough time in the day. I honestly wish days were like 35 hours long or something. I mean, I would get so much done, it's actually crazy. I need more time. All right, I'm done rambling, but yeah, sorry this is late. If you've also been playing Shadows of the Erdtree, comment down below and let me know what your experience has been so far, because I would love to hear about it. And also, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to, you know what I'm saying, drop a like and, you know what I'm saying, subscribe for more content like this, because I would also really appreciate that. All right, yep, this has been Lunar, and welcome to Bound.